Sometimes the most painful losses don't come from the enemy, but from the very people who have put their full faith. So close together, but understand the heart. It's not easy. There are things that seem obvious, but when the truth comes out, I realize that the human heart is unpredictable, deeper than imagined. And the most unpredictable is a woman's heart. They can be as soft as water, but as sharp as a knife. When they love, they are willing to hang their hearts. But when calculating, everything can be a flag in their hands. And right after, I'd like to invite you and your friends to listen to a short woman's story. Heart. Through the expression of Quan Huang wishing you and your friends. There are moments when listening to stories is relaxing. He pulled the blue and white shirt out. Just walked out of the office. He just gave his hand to rub his temples. A long day goes by. The noise from the hospital hallways, slowly sinking in. The quiet of the late afternoon. I sighed and walked home. My mind is still spinning with thoughts. It can't be stopped. Outsiders look at. Maybe they also think they have a life. I dream of being a doctor in a big hospital, married to the hospital director's daughter. Full house luxury. But who understands that? Every day I live in boredom. Velvet, your wife. She is no longer a gentle girl like when she was newly married. I see you more and more as a tool to show off their success. My father-in-law helped me get my current job. It makes me feel more like a parasite, living in his shadow. Tung stood in front of the gate, unconscious eyes staring at the house next door. The window is still open, from his neighbor's German house, echoing out familiar sounds, screens breaking down and crying. That's the young German wife. People I have seen repeatedly abused. She became a German wife not long ago. You're a simple, gentle country girl. But living in that house, you are no different than a prisoner. Duck is the head of the trauma department where Tung works, have power over position, but personal and patriarchal life. The side door opened. Come out with a red face. I look at you without pity. This young girl, they have suffered constant blows from a sadistic husband, but you have no way out of the neighborhood. Everyone knows, but no one dares to speak up. Germany is the power in the hospital, a hand to cover the sky. So bad things happened in his house. They're all covered up. I see Tung. She nodded slightly to her sad eyes. Embarrassed, he nodded back. I don't know what to say. I've met people like this. I always feel that there is something in my heart. They want to help but dare not. Are you okay, though you know the answer? Her lips nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. They are like asking for help. Take a step closer. I am afraid of the weakness that comes from you. You don't have to suffer like that, he said in a low, hoarse voice. The girl shakes her head. Her tears burst, but she tried to hold them back. I don't know what else to do. You're talking nonsense. Voice as if broken in the silent space. I can help you. Tung said, the eyes look straight at you. I want to make sure you're serious. Silence does not answer. Her hand unconsciously tightened the hem of her shirt. Lost eyes. Look at the sky ahead, without a ray of hope. Tung wants to say something more. I want to pull you out of the dark that you're stuck in, but the words are stuck in my throat. Come on in, Sai. Call me if anything happens. He said hello and walked quickly into the house. Tung stood quietly in front of his house. Your eyes are still watching the weak shadow until you disappear behind the door. My heart is heavy. It's not the first time I've seen the scene, being abused, but this time, the feeling of wanting to do something to make the change bigger than ever. I came home full of confused thoughts. Velvet is sitting on the sofa. Eyes do not leave the phone screen. She didn't even raise her head when she saw her husband. Are you back? Can I get you a glass of water in the kitchen? Velvet raised his voice, command cold and insensitive. I walked into the kitchen without a word. This is my life now. There's nothing but resignation. A marriage without love. It's just dependence and patience. But after the meeting, briefly meet me this afternoon. My heart begins to stir up unspeakable emotions. I know I can't go on living like this forever. Sitting in front of the dressing table, gently put lipstick on red lips with your fingers. You look at yourself in the mirror. Her eyes were cold and determined. You know you are charming. You're not just a rich girl. She's also an ambitious woman, ready to do anything to get what you want. For a long time, I was fed up with life and Tung. Your marriage to Tung is for you. It's just a transaction. It benefits both sides. You need a husband of status, ideal model for social eye covering, and Tung is a doctor supported by her father. Perfectly suited to that. But really, Tung is not the man that Neng longed for. Tung is a gentle pediatrician. The characteristics that Neng increasingly felt. Weakness and weakness. You can't meet your emotional demands. And your body. Time with Tung. I only see you weak and lifeless. You want more than that. I want a strong man with power. Who makes you feel conquered. At that time, Neng laughed. You have found such a man. And what's even more interesting is this relationship. It's right under the nose. No one else. That's Mr. German, her father's neighbor and best friend. That night I stood in front of the mirror, in a perfect body-hugging dress. Stand out in the warm yellow light. Her eyes glanced at the clock, lips curled up. On time she knew the German would arrive as always, in the guise of a visiting family friend. But behind the social conversations, it's these clumsy encounters, full of audacity and danger. A soft knock on the door. The door opened quickly and the German entered. A small smile appeared. The face has begun to appear aging. You're a powerful man, experienced, and there are many tricks, even though he had a young wife. But for Mr. Duck, it's just a decoration. You can never satisfy your desires. You're getting more beautiful, the German said quietly. The eyes do not hide the appetite when looking at Velvet. From head to toe, smiling didn't say anything, but her eyes lit up with complacency. You know you're beautiful, and you know how to use that beauty to get what I want. He walked closer to Germany. Without any hesitation, he put his arm around her waist, close to his lips. To her lips in a greedy and hurried kiss. That's how their meetings always go. Quick and bold, full of sin. You both know what you're doing. Know the consequences if you are caught. But that's what makes them even more excited. The risk of feeling forbidden. Make the moments together. It's more stimulating than ever. In a later conversation, after satisfying his desire, the German sat in bed. The cigarette in my hand burned. Velvet lying next to eyes looking at the ceiling, lightly stroking the soft black hair. Why did you choose Tung? The German laughed in disdain. It doesn't suit you at all. Because your father wants to, she replied in a cold voice. Tung is easy to control, with the image of a gentle doctor. Make people think we're a model family. Who thinks that the wife of a doctor can take risks with me, right? She turned to the German and a mischievous smile appeared. The German laughed, let out a puff of smoke into the air. He's an overly gentle coward. The whole AI hospital, without knowing, you're the one who supports it, but it keeps falsely refusing to grow. It's so weak you're bored. Velvet did not answer. She turned to face the German, gently clasped his hand to his chest. I don't need a man. Just bow your head in humility. I need strength. I need to feel conquered. Her voice was small but full of pressure. That made Germany shiver. There's a challenge in her eyes. Then he won't make you 7. He laughed and pulled her closer to him. At the same time, somewhere else, Tung sits in his quiet apartment, eyes looking out into the garden. Your mind is filled with chaotic thoughts. Life on the beach is getting more and more crowded. I know the relationship between them has been broken for a long time, but I never thought it collapsed so quickly. I feel like I'm slipping. into a deep hole without a way out. Feelings with Sage growing bigger in my heart, but I know it's wrong. She is the wife of Germany, who's in power at the hospital and who's your neighbor. But my heart can't hold back. I can't take it. When you feel you have to endure violence from a sadistic husband. I don't know that at home. They're also playing a dangerous game. Tung sat in front of the living room window. The streetlights go off into the house. It creates fading light. The darkness that covers the house makes me feel I'm trapped in a cage. Can't get out. I went out like every night. You never told me where you were going. And I don't care anymore. His eyes stopped at the next window. Heen is standing in the yard, eyes silently looking down at the ground beneath their feet. Tung knows what you're going through. And this time I can't stop myself. I stood up and walked out of the house. Don't let your thoughts stop you. Heart pounding in the chest. Tung crossed the yard and gently pushed the gate of Heen's house. The house gate is unlocked, as a sign that she had accidentally left behind. Sweetie, I called out in a low, hoarse voice. Turn your eyes open. For a moment, and then slowly relax. I didn't ask you why you were here. He didn't seem surprised either, afraid they don't need an explanation. You both know I'm on a dangerous path. But that invisible connection, it grows with each meeting. Slowly, he reached out and touched her hand. Feel the fragility and the cold in your skin, slowly trembling but not retreating. Her eyes twinkled under the light. I look at you with an emotion that Tung had never seen clearly before. Trust and the desire to be comforted. You're here, Tung whispered. I won't let you suffer like this forever. Sighing softly, your eyes are filled with sadness, but there's also a little relief when listening to Tung's words. I don't know why you let me write it. But on the outside, you feel safe, even if it's just the moment Tung pulls you into his lap. His warmth enveloped her in the night. Two people standing there in the narrow courtyard where the secrets and the pain are hidden. By the darkness of the night, I know from this moment, you've crossed a line you can't go back to. The next morning at the hospital, the air as usual was still busy with the sound of machinery, patients and nurses pounding back and forth. Tung tries to focus on work, but my mind can't get rid of the images about gentle, sad eyes and soft lips. Every time I think of you, I feel a warm feeling again, full of sin but can't resist. Along the nurse's corridor, a beautiful and confident young girl walked up to Tung. You always seem friendly to me, but today her eyes are even more hidden. Dr. Tung laughed. My hand touched my arm. You seem busy today. Slowly frown, but still respond with a polite smile. Too many patients. Do you have anything you need help with? Immediately squinted, her red lips curled up provocatively. No, I just wanted to ask. You've been so thoughtful lately. Work and family life are not easy. Steer clear of your eyes. I'm not comfortable with this excessive intimacy. She is a good nurse, but she always had a way of swinging with doctors, especially with you. But what makes you more upset? It's your sensitivity. They seem to have realized something in the change of Tung. It's nothing, it's just work. Tung quickly answered, his gaze towards the file in his hand. Hope the conversation is over. Immediately smiled, but in her eyes flashed a sharp ray. I noticed a change in your attitude. Recently especially. It's the times you look at the head of the house through Germany. You're not stupid. And in her heart she's kindling a sense of delight. Discover the secret Tung is trying to hide. After he left, he stood against the wall. Her eyes glanced at the German's office. A plan began to form in her mind. She walked over and knocked on the door. Come in, the German's voice boomed from within. Come on in, deliberately looked at him with a charming face. Hi Dean, I have something to tell you. German stood up from his desk. The eyes are clearly uneasy, but also a bit curious. What's wrong, nurse? Smiling, come closer. Her voice was small but full of meaning. I heard that. I've been a little busy with work and family lately. Family has a lot of hard things to say, right? The German did not understand what he was referring to. I mean, Sao laughed and bent lower. Whispered in the ear of the German, I just want to say that someone has. Maybe you're doing something you didn't expect. Who knows? Has the horn ever grown that you don't know about? The German was startled. His eyes glowed with anger and disbelief. Let's be clear about what you're referring to. He cast a hazy gaze at him. It's just that sometimes I see things that aren't right. That's it. Just take a closer look. Then you'll realize something. It's actually happening around me. When I finished, I turned around and walked out, leaving the German sitting in disbelief and insecurity. His anger began to boil over. But you can't identify what the link just said. But of patriarchal and suspicious character. You can't ignore this. Tung returned home that afternoon. My mind is still confused with thoughts of him and what you're doing. I've been in a relationship with you too deeply. There's no turning back. You are not just my lover. It's also the only source of motivation. Make you stronger in these dark days. Every time I see you, I feel more alive than ever before. It's as if you're escaping the grip of marriage with Velvet. Velvet sitting in the living room. My hand is still on the phone as always. But sometimes my eyes glance at Tung. She noticed that her husband had been acting strange lately. Talk less. Often late. But they don't care much either. You always have control in your hands. That Tung, a gentle and feeble man. I will never dare to betray you. But I didn't know you were wrong. Are you back? She asked in a cold voice, but didn't you really care? Short answer, eyes down to avoid her scrutiny. You seem to be busy lately. Velvet mustache. Is there anything outside of work you need to know? Slowly shaking his head, he didn't want any more strain. I know you don't really care. I just want to be superior and control you as always. It's nothing. It's just work. Smiling, she sat back on the chair. Eyes do not leave the phone. What else can you do besides work? Since that day, both Tung and Nung families, German and Sage, held a small party in the backyard of Mr. Duke's house. These parties are nothing new. Mr. Duck and his father Nung Thin often sitting together, talk about work and power relationships. I sat in a corner trying to keep my distance, but I can't help but keep an eye on you. Sitting next to Germany, she looks soft, but her eyes are strong. Since Tung and Sage started stealing from each other, Sage has changed. You are no longer as resigned as before. He began to resist the Germans. The Germans realized that change. He's not a fool. I still laugh and have fun with everyone, but in my heart, he knew there was something unusual about him. He began to investigate. His fury is getting more and more brutal, but he no longer suffers in silence. When the night is late, everyone at the party was drunk. Mr. Duck and Mr. Thin lounged on the chair, laughter echoing through the night. She has been in the house for a long time. I don't care about these meaningless conversations. Only Tung and Sage remain. Both of them secretly exchanged hidden eyes. Stand up and walk out into the back of the garden. I can't help but quietly follow you. They both met in the dark among the trees. The theater away from the eyes of others. Slowly pull the Sage closer, the feeling of your heart beating in your chest. She looked at you with gentle eyes, but also full of desire. In that moment, no one cares anymore to the dangers that are lurking around. I miss you, she whispered, her voice like the wind passing her hand. Only you can make me feel alive. Tung pulled her into his lap. Her lips reached her lips in a deep kiss. They're both caught up in each other with no restraint. The awkward moments, its forbiddance, only makes the desire between them more intense. Gently leaning on Tung's chest, her eyes filled with water. I can't take it anymore, Tung. I don't want to live with the Germans anymore. He makes me feel like I'm dying. Every day, I look deeply into your eyes. It's like being tied up in your heart. I know I'll help you. I promise I'll get you out of here. I love you. Soothing you are my only hope. Only you can help me get out of Germany. His words made him more determined. I can't let you go on living in hell. And to do something, you need to act. I started investigation into the German and the signs of corruption. Embezzlement of hospital funds began to emerge. I'll do anything for you, Tung said. Your voice is warm, but steady. I will find a way to expose the mistakes of the Germans. We're gonna get out of here together. Sage nods her eyes to hope. I feel like I'm getting more power from you. The weakness that you once carried, Theo, is now fading away. I know that with the show next door, you can face anything. But at home, they start to feel that something is wrong. You always thought you were in control. You are too weak to betray me. But lately Tung has had strange manifestations. You are no longer a good husband, as predictable as before. Although curious, Nung showed contempt. You never think that Tung can do something outside of normal work. In your eyes, you are a useless man. They are not capable of doing big things. At the hospital, he continues his investigation. With Heen's support and encouragement, I'm beginning to see many signs. Irregularities in hospital financial documents, the shady accounts. The projects are unclear. It's all about Germany and his father-in-law. Mr. Thin. Power relationship between Mr. Duck and Mr. Thin. They covered everything, but Tung is no longer afraid. I know that if I can uncover all the wrongs, not just Germany, the whole family will also face the consequences. And that's the only way, so that I can take you out of this hellish life. But I also know that confrontation with these powerful people, it won't be easy. I went to the hospital that afternoon. Tung sits in the office. In front of you are high-quality financial records. I turn the pages, feel the seriousness of the situation. Mr. Duck and his father-in-law, Mr. has been running the hospital fund for years. How much money do you make? Disappear into projects that are not transparent. The newly discovered mosquito made Tung even more worried. I'm putting myself in a dangerous game. But the desire to free Cho and overturn the Germans' violence keep pushing me. See you at the end of work. You enter the ring. His worried eyes looked at Tung. What did you find? Asked Little. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were determined. I looked up at her and nodded. I found the evidence. Mr. Duck and his father and I are embezzling public hospital funds. All of these papers are evidence. Sit down next to me. Your eyes are wide open. So we have to do what you're going to do. You've got to do that. I can't let you live in violence anymore. And I can't let them keep doing this either. Slowly holding Tung's hand. Her eyes were sad, but also full of hope. I know you can do it. But I'm afraid of Germany and my father. But he's not one to be overthrown easily, man. Tighten her hand. His voice was deep, but resolute. I'm not afraid. If we don't do anything, things will get worse. I want you to be free, and I want to get out of this trap. This time at Tung's house. I didn't know anything about Tung's investigation. You still look smug. I think I can always control everything. She didn't notice her husband's change. Or if you realize it, just consider it. The petty expression of a useless person. One morning, as Nung walked past Tung's office, you happened to see you are staring at the documents on the computer. Velvet stops, hands crossed in front of the chest, smirking. Are you working again? I thought you were focused on the patient, not financial documents. She mocked. Tung returned without bothering to hide his discomfort. I have a job to do, you don't have to worry. But entering the eye room, she flipped through the computer screen. See the tables and financial documents. You frown. He seemed surprised but didn't really care. What are you doing with all this? You're not in charge of finance. Don't tell me you think you can do something with these documents. It's more complicated than you think, he said, trying to keep his voice calm. I need to work you out. Smiling disdainfully at you. You don't work all the time. You can't do anything, Tung. You're too weak to change anything, including myself. slowly clenching his fist but not responding. You know that with Nung, everything revolves around control. Control and power. You don't believe me, and that makes me even more determined. Evening every weekend, the two families had a little party in the backyard. As usual, Mr. Duck and Mr. Thin and Nung sat drinking wine together. The party was in a fun atmosphere. But Tung and Meek, I feel the underlying tension again among the participants. The German often gave a meek look with an inquisitive look, as if he's trying to find something unusual about you. When the party is over, everyone was drunk and ready to leave. Tung and Gentle quietly sneak out behind the garden. The darkness covers both. Only the wind blew softly through the trees. Pull the sage closer. I can feel the pulse, the beating in my chest when their lips touched. I can't take it anymore. Sage sobbing. I love you, Tung. I don't want to live with the Germans anymore. I just want to get rid of him and be with you. Tighten me tight in your arms. Your eyes are full of love. I'll help you. I've collected 10 pieces of evidence with him. We're getting out of here fast. Baby, I'll take you. Leaning against his chest, her voice was full of faith. You're my only hope, I believe you. At the same time, in another dark corner of the garden, the German stood silently watching the dark eyes. He couldn't hear the conversation, but he saw clearly the way Tung and Sage looked at each other. He sensed that there was something unusual. The next day, when I went to the hospital, Duck took the initiative to meet his attitude changed dramatically. You seem to be working hard these days. Looking up, his eyes met the German's probing gaze, but I try to stay calm. You're welcome, German. It's just some work I need to do. The German laughed softly, but his voice was full of threats. Be careful, Tung. In this hospital, everyone knows what they do. Don't get involved in unnecessary things. He looked straight into Germany's eyes. Try to hide your anxiety. You always do your duty right. I hope so. The German said his eyes looked dangerous, because if that AI goes beyond its limits, the consequences will not be easy. That night when Tung returned home, call me, your voice is full of worry. Brother, you've got to be careful, Mr. German. He's starting to get suspicious. She said quickly, her voice trembling. I can feel it. He's watching your every move. Tung sat down in the chair, his eyes relaxed, looking at the ceiling. You know me, but I won't let him. I won't let him stop us. You've come too far to turn back. Sigh softly on the phone. I'm just afraid, you know. Does Germany and her father have any connection? They are all involved in embezzlement. The hospital's public funds. You've got enough evidence to take them down. That's the only way we're going to get out of here. At the hospital, Tung is drowning in a pile of financial documents. Your eyes lit up with determination. The pages of dense evidence that mistakes made by Mr. Duck and Mr. Thin. I feel like everything is progressing exactly as planned. I'm about to unravel it all, give back justice to God, and at the same time snatched her out of the hands of the Germans. In the meantime, beautiful nurse tries to enter the room. Tung feels a little uncomfortable with her sudden appearance, especially after the previous insinuations. Always seem friendly, but Tung knows you're not simple. You always have a secret, and this is no exception. The doctor smiled to hide. You seem so busy these days. Is there something you're trying to find? Tung did not answer immediately. His eyes were still glued to the file. It's just work, nothing special. She walked closer to him, her eyes sparkling. You can be good at hiding, but there's one thing I want to remind you of. In big games like this, it's not just scary opponents. Sometimes the women around me. It can also become more dangerous. Lift up your eyes with a spark of curiosity. You mean Sao? Smiling softly, her voice became deeper. The Dr. Tung woman. They can be a source of encouragement. It could be a knife in the back, especially when you don't know what they're fake about. Frown, you know what the link is insinuating. I don't understand why you chose this moment to say it. You're talking about AIP. I understand myself, and shrugged his shoulders, threw back a defiant smile, and left the room. It's a series of unanswered questions. That night when Tung returned home, I found out he wasn't at home as usual. Doubts start to creep in my mind, especially after the insinuations of a sense of insecurity filled Tung's heart. I can't believe Nung is somewhere just to meet friends or go shopping. As always, you've been a stranger to me for a long time. But today, something in the words of makes my doubts stronger than ever. Tung decided to follow Nung. You drive, follow. She kept her distance so she wouldn't be detected. Velvet turns into a dark alley street where Tung did not expect. After a while, she stopped in front of a small house, and as soon as I walked in, Tung couldn't believe his eyes. Standing at the door is Germany. The whole world fell apart in that moment. You and I not only betrayed you, but he betrayed himself, that you've seen as your biggest rival, who abused and defrauded the entire hospital system. Feeling of resentment and bitterness filled my heart. Everything I ever thought I controlled, now as if blown away by this cruel truth. Back at home, sitting quietly in a chair, the feeling of madness is rising inside me. Pictures of Nung and Mr. Duck over and over again in my head. I can't control my rage. She betrayed herself to the old man. My hands clenched against the chair. I was cornered from the beginning. This makes Tung feel it's not just the war with Germany, but now it's become a war for the whole family. The feeling of betrayal made Tung even more determined ever before. I will overthrow all, avenging both Nung and his father-in-law. A few days later I saw Tung again, but this time, your eyes are no longer just nostalgia or weakness. Now it's become a man's eye, full of determination and hatred. Oh my God, what happened? Ask your worried eyes. When I see the change in you, I found out the truth, baby. Your voice is full of bitterness. She's not just a strange wife to me. She betrayed you to the Germans. Her hands trembled when she heard this news. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. What do I do now? My eyes are full of determination. I will take revenge. You're going to overthrow everything from Mr. Duck to your father-in-law. The whole family will pay the price. And when it's over, I'll have you, baby. We will be free. I look at your watery eyes. I just need you. You are all I have. I don't care what happens. Just need you. I can get you out of this hell. Tung began to act bolder. Not just 10 more pieces of evidence. I was even more determined to investigate further about shady financial connections between Germany and Dad. His wife, from unusual expenses up to fake construction projects. It all led to a giant corruption ring that they used to get rich. Every time I see him more determined, you've become my biggest source of encouragement. Not just lovers, it's the one you need to protect. I want to prove to you that I am strong, determined, and will do anything to get you out of German hands. I won't let us be held back, lady. We will be free. Tung told her one evening, when the two secretly meet in a small room in the hospital. I hold you tight. I believe, Tung. You're my only hope. I have nothing but you. The words of Heen make Tung more eager to pursue the war. I'm not afraid anymore. Everything is now a matter of survival, revenge, overthrow, and take Sage. That night, they left the house after making sure Tung was busy with work at the hospital. You drive to a familiar house where she and Mr. Duck had repeatedly met in the dark. On the way, I am not worried or insecure about you. Everything is still under control. Tongue is still a gentle husband, easy to protect and not capable of threatening anything. When he arrived, the German was waiting. He opened the door with a sinister smile, eyes full of desire. When you see Velvet in a glamorous dress hugging her body, here you are. Mr. Duck sneered and dragged Nung into the house and closed the door. She smiled softly, her cold but provocative eyes. I keep acting like you're never there. I just miss you. The German laughed. Your hands are ready to explore your body as soon as you walk in. They both quickly fell into a passionate kiss. German hands devoured all over the body. You don't Velvet. Stop breathing, cowardly. The passionate feeling of overwhelming desire. They both don't need words. They just need to satisfy each other, just the way this clumsy relationship has been, before and after the passion. Both of you lounging on the plush sofa. Velvet dropped on her pillow, eyes peering out the window. The German's killed drugs. His eyes kept looking at his body, naked of Velvet. How do you see Tongue lately? Asked casually. Her hands lightly clasped her hair. Your voice is still cold. The German laughed, but his smile was ironic. I don't like the way he's been behaving lately. It is wrong to say little. It seems like I've been keeping an eye on something lately. Should not. Velvet looked up, her eyes flashed a ray of suspicion, but then it flashed. Tongue, what are you worried about him? Tongue is the sow that dares to resist. He always listens to me. You're never strong enough to do anything. The German looked at him and laughed. Don't look down on my man. When cornered against the wall, even the weakest will turn back. I don't want to see your good dog. It turns into a biting wolf. The opposite. Smiling is not worried. You don't have to worry. Tongue has no courage to do anything. He's just a weak doctor. All year round, I just put my face to work. What do you think he's going to do to you and your father? The German looked at him, and his eyes were full of shame. That's good. But remember, you've got to manage him. I don't want to face surprises. Not desirable. The smile still keeps a smug smile on her lips. I think you can't afford Sao. Tongue is still in my hands. He's too predictable. Never dared to do anything apart from being good to your wife. The German looked at her for a long time and laughed. He likes the way you are confident and despise her husband. It just increases the arousal in him. He just dropped his cigarette on the floor. Brutal hands pull Velvet close. The soul devours your neck. Velvet does not resist. She giggled. Let the German explore his body. His fingers slid along his white skin. You have no hesitation. You're ambitious, but I like that. We're the perfect couple, you and me. Ambition not to let AI control. Mr. Duck too silently. His black eyes glowed with lust. Velvet didn't say anything. Just close your eyes. Let Mr. Duck continue to pull her into passion. It's crazy that these two ambitious people are wrapped up in each other, not only for desire, but also for personal gain. Their relationship is not just flesh. It's also calculation, ambition, pushing them deep into spirals they can't escape. After the craze, as the German breathed heavily in bed, Velvet still maintains a smug smile on her lips. She knew she had control over both Duck and Tongue. For you, everything is in your hands, and she's not afraid of any threats at all. From her weak husband, the German is next to you, lazy hands stroking Velvet back, but remember to manage him for good. Don't let anything out of your will happen. If necessary, you will act first. Smiling, he turned to face him. Don't worry, I know what to do. Both are drowning in their own complacency and power. Don't realize that somewhere. Tongue was no longer the weak man they thought he was. Your war of revenge has begun, and their calculations are about to be overturned. That night in the hospital's dark room, I met him in secret as always. But this time, it's not just evasive conversations or vague promises. I have the full evidence in my hands about all the wrongs committed by Mr. Duck and his father-in-law. The financial documents, ghost contracts, and fake documents that Mr. Duck used to manually fund. For Tung, this is the moment of victory. Sitting across from you, her eyes sparkled in the weak light of the room. When Tung handed out the document, my heart will tremble, small hands gripping the pages. Her eyes were wide open, but she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "This is all," Tung said, his voice excitedly. "I've collected 10 pieces of evidence about the embezzlement of German public funds. And your father-in-law, with everything you've got in your hands, they're never going to get away with it." Sage didn't say anything. Her eyes sparkled with water as she looked at Tung. "You really did it," she said, her voice trembling. "You really did it, Tung." Smiling softly, the feeling of victory in my heart. "It's all because of you, baby. I want you to be free. I want us to live as they do. I deserve to be thrilled to embrace Tung." Her arms are tight around you. "I don't know how to thank you. I did it all for you. You're so lucky to have me." In that moment, Tung felt every worry, every stress disappear. I can feel the warm sweetness. The fragile woman he was determined to protect. Compared to the cold arrogance of Velvet, it gives me the feeling of love. True love, the tenderness that I've been longing for. You're not just the one I want to free. It's the one you want forever. He looked up at Tung. "Your eyes are filled with emotions. I don't know what I would do without you. You made me feel important. You saved me from life. I thought I'd never get out." Tung looked deep into her eyes. Feel the sincerity in every word. As delicate as a delicate flower, but with quiet strength. "It makes me more involved in you. You're not a scheming woman, or ambitious as Velvet. It's a woman who really needs you. A believer who loves and admires you. You don't have to worry anymore. It will all be over soon. As long as you overthrow the German, we will be free. We'll be able to get the main road together." Smiling softly, then her lips reached Tung's. In a passionate kiss, Tung can't resist. "It's your sweet charm. Soft and gentle. And I'm in a coma with no way out. Your words are sweet." The exquisite touch. He was completely immersed in passion. After that passionate meeting, "Sit one. I'm in the hospital office thinking about you. You make me feel stronger than ever. But at the same time, it also increases your disgust for me. I remember every detail of his cold married life. But contemptuous eyes, your kind words, and lack of respect. I have never appreciated talent or effort from you. In my eyes, you are just a weak husband. The person behind your family. I've never admired myself as much." Mumbling, his eyes glowed with resentment. "They just despise and lower themselves. Who does she think she is?" These thoughts made me more determined. "You must quickly break the German and the whole Nung family. They've despised you for too long. I want not only revenge, it also proves that I'm not a weak man. Not as valuable as you think. And I'll do it to get Sage. The only woman. Make me feel loved. Be respected." A few days later, I went to see Tung. "Your face shows worry." She lay softly on his hands, her eyes filled with anxiety. "I'm scared," she whispered. "The Germans began to pay more attention to me. He suspects me. I'm afraid he'll do something." Tung died tightly, her hands' eyes glowed with determination. "Don't worry. We're so close to the end. I won't let him hurt you." I look at you with a look of admiration, and trust me, you know I'll make it. You're the only one I can trust. In a quiet room, Tung and Tung are close together. No more words, there's only eyes and desire. That they both held back for so long. Tung gently pulled gently into the heart. Feel the warmth from your body, the softness that I can't break. Lean your head against Tongue's chest, feeling safe and at peace. You're not shy. It doesn't keep any distance. Tongue bent down to kiss her soft lips. A tender but passionate kiss. Their every gesture is naturally unforced. Sage hands glide Tongue's shoulders. Her breath rushed as the two of them merged. Every movement causes emotions to overflow, stronger than ever. In that moment, the surrounding space is opening up the closeness of... In that moment, the surrounding space opened up. The closeness, the mutual understanding that drives all emotions. Sage, let yourself sink into love and protection from every breath. Every beat is one. In a moment of closeness, Sage is in Tongue's hands, the dim light from outside the window, shining into a quiet room. She leaned softly against his chest, eyes full of love and a little nervous. I have something to tell you. Sage to speak. Her voice was soft, but clearly a little shaky. Slowly turn around. Curious eyes looked at me, as if waiting for something you're about to say. Smile gently, her hands placed softly on her stomach. Then look up at me. I'm pregnant. Tongue is your son. Stunned for a moment. I don't believe what I just heard. I look up. Her eyes wide open, trying to catch every word she said. The emotions in you are chaotic. Joy and surprise intertwined, create a feeling that I've never experienced. Tell me the truth. Tongue asked with a trembling voice. Sage nods. Her eyes sparkled in the dim light of the room. She held his hand softly. My stomach as an affirmation. We will have a baby. And I want us to be together soon. I don't want to wait. I want to be a real family. Tongue looked deeply into his gentle eyes. I can feel your sincerity and desire. My heart seems to miss a beat, but now it's beating faster and harder. He squeezed her tight and pulled her into his lap. The feeling of happiness in my heart. Baby, I'll always be with you. We'll be a family, and I'll protect you and your baby. Tongue whispered in her ear, your voice is full of determination and love. Smile gently. She leaned on Tongue's chest and felt his heartbeat. His words made me feel even more. I have to finish this war, at any cost. You have to overthrow Mr. Duck and the Nung family. Not just for you, but for yourself. I can't live forever in their contempt. You have to prove that you're strong. Strong and able to control everything. That night when Tongue returned home, still sitting in the living room, her eyes did not leave the phone screen. She didn't look at me when you walked in. Still with a familiar apathy. If you relate, it is work. The waves are as cold as ever. Tongue is silent. Your eyes flashed through Nung, but you can't hide contempt in your heart. She's your wife, but I never gave you respect that a husband deserves. I looked at her with disgust. I can't understand why I could have lived with a woman like you. For so long it was work. Tongue answered briefly and walked straight to the room, but in my heart, the determination is stronger than ever. I've got to end this. You will no longer be the one behind the despised. You'll make the whole family regret it for daring to despise you. The day Tongue made public his mistakes, German father and wife, the whole hospital is shaking. No one would have expected that Tongue, who has long been considered gentle, weakness, they have the courage to overthrow the system that you used to rely on. Everyone is talking about a word. Standing in front of the investigative agency, facing a series of glances from colleagues and media. On the table, these are documents that you've lost for months. All the evidence of embezzlement of public funds, corruption of Mr. Duck and his father-in-law Mr. Thin, an investigator looking straight into the crowd. Tough voice. We have enough evidence to bring charges against Germany for embezzlement of public funds. Mr. Thin, director of the hospital, you will also be responsible, related to his role as head. Tongue silently looked around. All eyes are on you. There are admirers. Some people are full of doubt. Some people even show contempt. I know this is coming, but I don't care. Everything is now clear. In the hospital, the chatter was relentless. I can't believe Tung is so honest. Dare to stand up to the German and his father-in-law. That's brave. A young doctor spoke admiringly, but not everyone thinks so. What the hell are you doing, betraying your father-in-law, who once supported himself? It is a short time to think. I don't know how to enjoy. Another doctor whispered. That's right. He's been protected by his father-in-law. Turn your back on true betrayal. Meanwhile, Mr. Sheng's father-in-law faced the direct consequences, not directly involved in the crime, but as a hospital director. You can't escape the connection. In front of the investigative agency, his face looked like someone who had lost his soul. He knew his whole career had been ruined. In the hands of his own son-in-law that you once believed in. When the investigator asked Mr. about my responsibility, he just sighed softly. His voice was hoarse and tired. I don't think Tung would do that. All my life I've taught it to support it. I can't believe he betrayed me like this. She was the one who suffered the biggest shock. I can't believe what's happening. You're crazy to know your husband, who gave all the evidence, to destroy your family. She rushed home with red eyes of anger. When Tung returned, the argument between them exploded instantly. You dare to do that, Tung? Velvet screams, her voice is broken. You think you're the one who betrayed my family? All my life my father helped you have everything. And you stabbed him in the back. Tung looked at Nung cold eyes. I thought my father really helped me. He's just taking advantage of you. The same way I always see you as a tool for my life. Anger comes to my face. Don't lie. You have something to say. I think I'm good. I got here today thanks to AI. If it wasn't for my family, what would you have? Thanks to my family. That's thanks. But it's the way my whole family always despises you. You too. I don't think you realize. I never respected you as a husband. But angry, cool red eyes. You are an ungrateful man. My dad gave you a career, gave you everything, and now you're back to stab him. Who do you think you are? Smiling, but your voice is full of sarcasm. You are my husband, but I never considered you a true husband. I just see you as a useless person. I never admired or respected you. But I can't control it anymore. She looked around, her eyes stopping at the knife on the kitchen table. In anger, she rushed to grab the knife. His hands trembled with anger. You're going to pay the price, Tung say. I won't leave you alone. Nung rushed straight into Tung's stomach, blood spray out from the wound that dyed my shirt red. Crouching down with eyes wide open, in shock. Not in time to react. Your whole body hurts, but inside is filled with emptiness. Tung was taken to the emergency hospital soon after, and the whole hospital was once again in a state of chaos when they heard the news. Oh my God, Tung was stabbed in the back. What's going on? A worried nurse. It's ironic. People who dare to denounce wrongdoing, stabbed for his own family. A doctor shook his head. Life is hard to touch power. Who knows what's going to happen? A few days later, when you wake up in the hospital room, he looked up at the White House ceiling, the feeling of pain smoldering all over the body. I remember everything that happened, since the evidence was made public, until the moment Velvet stabbed me. It all rhymes in my mind. Sigh, I did the right thing. No matter how expensive it costs, I also chose my own path. Life. Sometimes it's a series of difficult decisions, and people only really understand their values between the boundaries of right and wrong. In the eyes of many, Tung can be a fool, destroying everything he has. But for you, it's a release from what? How long have I bound you? Life is a choice, and sometimes to be true to yourself, people have to give up everything. I closed my eyes with relief that I made the right choice. The next day, the white teeth of the ward shining in his eyes. Makes me squint my eyes wide open. I look around. My eyes are looking for that aisle. Next to the bed, the nurse always appears in an unpredictable way. She sat quietly. I saw Tung's eyes moving everywhere. She asked softly, "Who are you looking for?" He blinked a little hesitantly and replied softly, "No, I'm not looking for Nung." He laughed his eyes off Tung's face. "So you're looking for the German's wife, right?" His question came as a huge shock to Tung. I'm surprised I don't understand why. I know your relationship and your love. Right now, I feel a sense of insecurity in my heart. It's hard to describe why, you know. Asked the trembling voice. Immediately smirked and grinned. Your voice is a little cold. You don't have to worry about Cho. She's living well now. Shocked at what you said. What's happened these days? I laughed and started telling everything. In 3 days I was in a coma. A lot changed. Finn was removed from office immediately. And the position of hospital director, it's not his anymore. Deputy Director Home, a 40-year-old man, has been appointed to replace. And they also praised the young director for being dedicated and very skillful. Immediately stopped. Watched Tung's expression before continuing. But what's more interesting is to walk next to the Emperor, now no one else. It is Sage. She became his fiancée. Beautiful, radiant in the welcome party. I feel like the whole world is falling apart. Your eyes are wide open. I don't believe what I just heard. It's impossible. Just sit there. The eyes are calm, but the voice is cold. Why can't? While you're lying here, everything is turned. Life is good now. It has nothing to do with you anymore. Tung feels his mind spinning. I can't believe. Things have changed so fast. Maybe you've been taken advantage of all this time. I can't believe it. I immediately picked up the phone and called her. But the bell only lasted hopelessly. You don't answer the phone. You don't give up. I texted you to meet you. That afternoon, the king and his wife walked into the hospital room. Smiled. History walked closer to Tung's hospital bed and shook hands as a leader who cares about his employees. Walking next to her in an elegant white dress, but I couldn't help but notice her slightly raised belly. I came to see you, he said with a concerned voice. I heard you had a shock. I really appreciate your contributions. I hope you recover quickly. Tung tried to stay calm, but in my heart, like 1,000 needles pierced. I know this is a fake. Looking at the beautiful and radiant Emperor, I feel the pain I can't describe. He just smiled softly at me and said nothing. You didn't take a look, or words to explain what happened between them. Tung understands that he has been used cruelly. I swore to you that I loved you. But it's all a play. You just need me to overthrow the Germans and put him on the director's chair. He laughed and said everyone praised him. I appreciate you very much, Tung. Your career will go even further. Rest for good. The next few days in the hospital, just sit there with an empty mind. I realized the bitter truth that you're just a pawn in the game of God and God. Everything I do is for you. And now you've got everything, but not with me. Then I remembered the previous words about a woman's heart. I was too naive. I think all the things I do, they bring nothing to me beyond the pain. When Tung left the hospital, he was called to the director's office. Sitting behind the desk, the face still has a fake smile. I have a decision I want to inform you of. Prince said softly, we decided to send you to the Highlands so that you can cure poor children. It's a noble job. He sat quietly and felt the bitterness in his heart. I know what this means. This is how they push you away from everything, to end your way up. He smiled, but his voice was full of irony. Someone like you, even his father-in-law dared to overthrow him. Who would dare to keep you by my side? You're right to go. grinding my teeth. The hatred of fate is rising. But the king continues. The tone becomes sharper. People like you only act on instinct. They will always be used by others. The war of the minded. Not for you. The most peaceful place for someone like you, probably with the kids. They're naive and have no agenda. Here you are just a tool for others. Your words are like the last knife. He lost the last confidence in me. I realize that all I've done, all of my sacrifices, in the end, just to help others climb to the top. And you're thrown away like a used object. That's a young horse. Smiling, he motioned for Tung to leave the room. Tung quietly packed his luggage and prepared to go to the Highlands. I know that my career is over. The ambitious desires you thought you had, now only bitterness remains. I finally realized that I had judged the wrong person, especially in the heart of God. Life is not as easy as you think, and ambitious plots. Your lies have made you a victim of your own. Your integrity and innocence. This life is not simple, gently muttered the distant gaze. Conspiracies and lies are always hidden deep below. The sweet faces. The most dangerous thing is a woman's heart. As time goes by, Tung lives quietly in the middle of the mountains. Into nature and the naive kids. I spent long days in the clinic for the children. See the innocence in their eyes. Make my heart soften. Every afternoon, you're walking among the fields of flowers, watching the purple-white flowers spread out under the sun. Those are the moments I feel so relieved, more serene than ever. Life here is simple. The intrigues of calculating. There's no ambition and no lies. I've hurt you for days. One afternoon, when Tung is sitting watching the flower field from the high hill, suddenly I heard the call behind me. Standing in the vast space, with sharp eyes and a light smile. You live like this peacefully. Come closer to me and sit next to me. I've finally found peace. Smiling softly, the eyes still look far away to the blue mountains. Yes, everything is normal here. There are no conspiracies. It's just children and nature. It was quiet for a while, as if thinking about something. Then she sighed and looked at Tung. But have you ever wondered about me? I was stunned when I heard about it. It's been a long time since I wanted to think about you, the woman who thought I loved deeply. It was the reason I lost everything. But deep down I still wonder. What happened to you? Sage, what's wrong now? His voice dropped, unable to hide his curiosity. Smiling softly, you want to hear the truth? Tung nodded, his eyes lit up a worried Tia. I looked into your eyes and started talking. Her voice was even but sharp. After giving birth, she was no longer the woman the king wanted. He rejected her. Treat her like an object that has run out of value. All of them are just mobile flowers. Just be beautiful and listen, but she can't do more than that. The emperor is a hypocrite in front of the world. He still plays the role of a loving husband, but behind the back. I met many other nurses in the hospital. For him, it's just a shadow. He's the shield for his image, in front of everyone. Tung sat quietly. My heart sank when I heard those words. I thought you would have a better life. But now I realize I was wrong. She continued, her voice a little sarcastic. I think it just needs to be beautiful. Just no seduction in bed. I can make you love her forever. But the sage was mistaken, for the sage is just a tool. She has no temperament. Don't make money on your own. For someone like the king, Sage is just a jacket with a gentle appearance that he needs to wear when he's outside. In his desires and interests of adventure, Sage is nothing. Tung lowered his head and sighed. He was deceived by his own illusions. And now you have to pay for that choice. I don't know how to feel. Grief for you, or simply, is to see it as a life lesson. So now Lev Zhao Tung asked quietly voice. She lives in a house away from HOA, but more lonely than ever. An empty bed. A life away from home, but without true love. That's the price of choosing the wrong person. The price of ambition and the illusion that beauty is enough to change lives. I thought I could control a man. But she doesn't understand that, in this world, women without inner strength are forever just tools. Stop your eyes and look straight at Tung. How do you feel about regret? Tung sighed his dim gaze towards the flower field. The 3 vessels are blooming. Life is unpredictable. And must also pay the price for its choices. She had what she wanted. But she's also lost a lot of things. I just feel sorry for her, but that's life. It's not that AI can see through everything. He laughed and shook his head. Yes, life is full of traps. We always think we can control it, but then get caught up in the calculations, lies that you didn't anticipate. I sat quietly listening to every word of the conversation. I realized the bitter truth about life, that people don't always trust. The ones we love, they will be my companions forever. The greed and the human heart. Everything has its price. In the end, he just sighed. That's what life is all about. Like it or not, we all have to pay the price for my decisions. He sat next to me and said nothing more. You understand that Tung has been on a long journey, full of pain and loss, but in the end, I found peace in my heart. The price of maturity, of realizing the truth about life. Sometimes expensive, but that's a lesson that AI has to learn. They're sitting together in these 3-dimensional flower fields. My heart is more peaceful than ever. Life goes on, but now Tung understands that everything is a choice. And I also have to face what I did. Dear friends, the short story is over. It's a great story, isn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, if you see this story, or you remember to subscribe and comment to the channel, in support of Cho Kwang Huang, thank you very much. And see you and your friends again in the new series. It will be broadcast on the channel. Hello, and see you later.